The decision yesterday in New York, you may have read about it. Crooked judge, crooked judge. He's a crooked judge. The actual bankers who were involved in the loan transactions that were talked about testified at the trial. They said that Donald Trump was a highly sought-after whale.
This statement is true. Multiple bankers from Deutsche Bank Wealth Management Group testified in the trial in Trump's favor. They said that it wasn't unusual for wealthy individuals like Donald Trump to overstate their wealth in their financial statements, and it was a perfectly standard procedure for the bank to go through these numbers and revise them down if needed. Trump was indeed regarded as a top revenue generating client at the bank, and Rosemary Ravitch, who was the person in charge of the personal relationship with Donald Trump, did refer to getting him as a client initially as whale hunting due to the size of his personal wealth. The counter argument from the prosecution in the case here is that just because the bankers are happy with the situation, that doesn't mean that Trump wasn't knowingly trying to deceive them, which in itself is illegal.
Those banks earned more than $100 million in profits doing business with me and my companies. They were very happy, and they testified that way.
It's difficult to fact-check exactly how much money Deutsche Bank and other banks have made from their relationship with Donald Trump, but a New York Times article puts the amount that Donald Trump borrowed from Deutsche Bank over the last couple of decades at around $2 billion. We also know from that article that on some of the loans that Donald Trump got, the interest rate on them was somewhere around 3%. Now, of course, this figure is just a very rough estimate. Other fees, of course, could be involved in that relationship. Those interest rates could be very different, varying from loan to loan. So $100 million really doesn't seem like an unrealistic figure in terms of how much money Deutsche Bank would have made from their relationship with Donald Trump.
The expert witness, one of the most respected anywhere in the country, anywhere in the United States, said that my financial statements were the best that he's ever seen. That's not bad.
Eli Bartov, who is an accounting professor at New York University, who has been hired as the expert witness on behalf of Trump in this case, said, and I quote, "My main finding is that there is no evidence whatsoever of any accounting fraud when referring to Donald Trump's statements." He also added that any overstating done by Trump is most likely an error rather than a conscious attempt to mislead the people reading the statements. It's worth noting too that this expert witness has received almost $1 million in fees whilst working on the Trump case.
Ironclad disclaimer. Do you know what a disclaimer is? We have an ironclad disclaimer. That's like buyer beware. It means do your own due diligence. Don't believe what you're reading. It's all good, but don't even believe it. Go out and do your own due diligence. You have to do that. We had an unbelievable disclaimer.
Trump did have a disclaimer in his financial statements that essentially said that whoever is reading them could very easily arrive at a very different conclusion with regards to his personal wealth, and that everything in those financial statements is to be taken with a pinch of salt. This disclaimer is at the heart of Trump's defense, but has been rejected time after time by the prosecution as an invalid argument. And the counter case here is that just having a note at the end of your statements that is saying that you might be lying in those statements doesn't mean that you aren't lying and that you aren't trying to deceive the people who are reading the statements, which in and itself, once again, is illegal.
And you know, unlike these other politicians, I knew it would happen. I didn't think it would be this much, but I knew I would lose $1 billion or $2 billion if I was honest running for president and being president. And that's what I lost, maybe a couple of $1 billion.
His estimates here are pretty spot on, and given that it's his personal fortune, he probably knows best how much money he has lost. If we look at Forbes' estimate of Trump's net worth in 2016, we're somewhere around $4 billion. And if we look at that same number in 2023-24, we are roughly around $2 billion. So that is exactly a loss of about $2 billion.
The judge, one of the least respected in New York State, said that Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, now you don't really know too much about it, but it's very valuable real estate, let me put it that way, was worth $18 million in order to try to make his case. By doing that, He brought the values way down. He tried to make his case when in actuality it's worth anywhere from 50 to 100 times that amount.
The Mar-a-Lago estate has also been a very contested issue right at the center of Trump's case. Now, the estate is a very valuable piece of property, but it's also located on a land that has deed restrictions, which means that the estate cannot be used as anything else than a private club. It has limits on the numbers of memberships that it can issue to members each year. The deed also prevents further construction or expansion on the land, which really limits its commercial potential. So compared to other similar real estate properties, similar in size and location, yes, the Mar-a-Lago property is probably worth more than the $18 million quoted by the judge in the case. However, those properties don't have the same deed restrictions that the Mar-a-Lago real estate has, and pretending that you don't understand that these deed restrictions exist and valuing the property as if those weren't there is what is considered to be fraudulent by the prosecution in Trump's case, and ultimately what the Trump team is being tried for.